Some things are inexplicable. This tiger keeps bowing when he sees this girl. Then, they discover the sad reason. Mandy couldn't wait to get to the tiger enclosure. She couldn't speak much yet, but she had her tiger soft toy in one arm, and she was pulling her parents by their hands. Andrea and Connor, her parents, couldn't help but laugh. She only said a few words, but tiger was one of them. The girl was still so young, but she remembered exactly where to go to see the tiger exhibit. They tried to convince her to sit in her stroller, but she just kept saying no and asked them to come. She needed to see her favorite animals as quickly as she could. Mandy had slept well the previous night, and she was bursting with excitement and energy. As quickly as her little legs could carry her, she ran to the tiger enclosure, but her family would never expect what would happen there. The zoo was one of their favorite places to take their daughter since she loved animals so much, and they quickly noticed that there was a new animal in the back of the enclosure. The tiger enclosure had a huge wall of safety glass separating the animals from the visitors. It meant that the visitors had unobstructed views of the animals. While they could be completely safe too. Knowing that there was no way their child could somehow end up in the enclosure, the parents could sit down on the bench close by and watch her observing the animals. Mandy ran from one side of the enclosure right to the other, saying hello to all the tigers in the enclosure. She was so excited to see them all. She also noticed the new Bengal tiger that was sitting on a rock at the far end of the enclosure. The enclosure was massive and it went much deeper, allowing the animals to get away from the crowds of people when they wanted to. The sign said that the Bengal tiger's name was Koshi. He stayed at the back, but then he seemed to notice the girl. Slowly, Koshi made his way to the front of the enclosure until he was right against the glass wall. He watched the girl intently. Mandy ran back and forth, but when she saw the tiger sitting there, she stopped right in front of him. There were a lot of other children that were watching him and trying to get his attention, but he only looked at Mandy. She stood against the glass right in front of him. It was probably the only time all day that she would stand still for a few seconds. The next moment, the tiger put his front paws up and jumped against the glass. All the kids got frightened and they put some space between them and the glass. Even the parents jumped back for a second, although they knew that the glass was too thick for the tiger to break it. All of the kids jumped back, except for Mandy. Instead of jumping back, the small girl walked forward and put her hands against the glass where Koshi's paws were. As soon as she did this, the tiger put his head down and bowed down to her. It was an incredible moment. To Andrea and Connor, it felt like everyone around them went completely quiet, but not for long. Other kids tried to get the tiger to do the same with them, but he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't even look at them. Mandy ran off again, and the tiger followed her along the glass. It was a scary sight. A tiger stalking your child doesn't sound like a good environment to leave them in. But when Andrea looked at the tiger, she didn't see an aggressive animal. All she saw was an animal that looked sad, and running back and forth against the glass seemed to lift his sadness a bit. It was like the tiger was mimicking everything that the child was doing. It was incredible. Mandy was still so young to realize just how special this was. But the family did. The tiger only had eyes for the little girl, and she kept going in front of other kids because they were playing. Her parents tried hard to make sure she didn't get in anyone's way, but the tiger area was getting crowded. With Koshi the tiger and Mandy so focused on each other, it was hard to get her to consider other people. Andrea and Connor were worried that the other families would start to get irritated with their toddler. Most of the people around them were only watching because it was awesome to see the rare occasion. But for her parents, it felt like they saw many disapproving looks. There was even a zoo staff member looking at them intently. It was starting to worry them, and they decided that Mandy had spent enough time with her favorite animal for now. The staff member came up to them, but they walked away without seeing that they were being watched. There was an entire zoo that they still needed to explore. This was a great zoo with huge enclosures for the animals and many enrichment programs to keep them happy. They also allowed the public to interact with many of the animals in a safe environment. Education and conservation was the most important part of the zoo. That gave kids plenty of opportunity to experience special moments with the animals. The rest of the day was awesome. Mandy got to feed some ostriches and hand over a tall leaf to the giraffes. They watched from a distance as the zoo fed the lions and they could see someone cleaning the shark tank. Mandy got to do all sorts of activities because she would volunteer with her baby Babel each time they asked for someone to do something. She wasn't scared of anything, whereas some of the older kids had learned to be frightened of what they didn't know yet. Of course, it helped that Mandy was just a special animal person in the first place. They didn't need to go to the zoo for animals to flock to her. She always had animals surrounding her. It would surprise and delight her parents each time they went to visit their family and friends who owned pets. They would say that their pet wasn't aggressive, but they didn't like children. Then, by the end of the night, the cat or dog would be snuggled up to Mandy when she took a nap. Her parents were always careful and aware of the possibility of an animal hurting her. But she had a knack for making friends with animals. When they went on a tropical beach vacation, they would sit on the beach and some of the wild little birds would come to sit on Mandy's shoulder. Even the dolphins would come up to where she was when they took a boat trip on that same holiday. For Mandy, it was completely normal that animals adored her. She loved them completely and never feared them at all. They must have felt the little girl's special energy. Being at the zoo and seeing all these animals was just another day for the little girl. They had interacted with a few of the smaller ambassador animals, and they even went to a zoo nursery to look at the new baby gorillas. It was super sweet. But as much as Mandy enjoyed all the other animals, she kept asking to go back to the tigers. More specifically, she kept asking to go back to Koshi. Her parents joked that it might have been a big mistake to teach her his name. They were going to hear about him often. Mandy was happy to spend loads of time in the zoo, and they even had lunch there. So, by the time they gave in and headed back to the tigers, it was a lot quieter than it was that morning. Connor was feeling slightly paranoid. He kept seeing the same staff member following them all around the zoo, all day. Did the man think they would try to steal one of the animals, or get into an enclosure? Or that they would allow their toddler to injure one? Even if she wasn't as gentle as she was, her parents would never allow that. It was weird to see this man pop up all over the zoo, but Connor didn't want to say anything and ruin everyone's day. They got back to the tiger enclosure and this time they were almost alone in the area. The last family left not long after they came. Koshi was once again on his rock right at the back of the enclosure. His head hung off the rock and there was an air of defeat all around the tiger. How an animal that large and majestic could look so utterly defeated was a mystery, but somehow he managed it. Until Mandy called out the tiger's name. Koshi. Koshi. Come here. Come, Koshi. She hadn't even said her grandparents' names yet, but somehow she quickly learned the tiger's name. When the tiger heard her, his head shot up and he looked towards the glass wall. As soon as he saw that she was back, he started running towards her. It was a scary sight. The big tiger charged toward the glass wall, its massive body and weight almost making the ground shake. The sight could be intimidating for anyone standing on the other side of the glass wall. It felt like he was going to run right through the glass, but he skidded to a stop just in front of it. He looked down at the girl and plopped down. As soon as he sat down, he put his paws on the glass and bowed his head to her, just like he did before. It was the strangest thing that he kept bowing to her, but he hadn't done it with anyone else, as far as they could tell. The tiger's strange behavior puzzled them. Why did he keep bowing to the little girl? Now that Mandy couldn't bother anyone, her parents sat down and just let her enjoy herself. Then, the staff employee who followed them the entire day suddenly came back into the area. Connor tensed up. He hoped this person wouldn't be mean and ruin his little girl's enjoyment, but that was not his intention at all. Instead, he wanted to share why he believed the tiger was acting so strangely. Each time he tried to approach the family, something would come up. Now, he was finally able to tell them why Koshi, the tiger, kept bowing when he saw the little girl. Now, the family was going to discover the sad reason. The staff member introduced himself as Sam, the head zookeeper. He worked closely with the tigers, and for months now, they were very worried about Koshi. The tiger was rescued, and he came to them a few months before. He was young enough to be able to find his place among the other tigers in the zoo. He wasn't aggressive, and he quickly fit in. The first hurdle of getting him accepted was quickly overcome, but that didn't mean they were out of the woods. Koshi was severely depressed. He wouldn't play with the other animals, and he just lay in the farthest corner that he could find. He didn't want to interact or get involved with enrichment exercises. He barely ate, and when he did, he only ate enough to sustain him. That explained why the tiger looked a lot thinner than a tiger his size should be. They knew it was going to be a massive hurdle to adapt to life in a zoo, but it was going worse than they imagined. The sad thing was that the big cat was saved from living as someone's pet. The police conducted a raid on the compound of a man arrested for various crimes, which included funding a ring involved in poaching and animal trapping. The exotic animal trade that came from that had made him a lot of money. He was involved in numerous other illegal activities, and he would be going to jail for a long time. But among all the other contraband they found on the compound, they also found a young tiger, Koshi. He was captured, and the man decided to keep him as his own pet. He kept the cub in a small enclosure, which Koshi quickly outgrew. Then he chained him up in the back and allowed all his friends to look at the tiger. Because the man was worried that the cat would injure them, he had him declawed. How terrible is that for a majestic creature? Not only was it extremely painful for the tiger, but it impacted the tiger's behavior immensely. As Koshi grew, everyone, including his horrible owner, started to get scared of him. He could still do damage with his teeth. They fed him less, and he was left on his own most of the time. He was in a bad situation, but through it all, there was one person on the compound that made sure the tiger had clean water and some food. That was the daughter of the housekeeper. They weren't treated much better than the animals, but the owner didn't pay any attention to the little girl. She could safely care about the tiger. She even put her head against his at times, trying to give him some comfort. That was likely what he was trying to do with Mandy. Then, the police showed up, and they confiscated the tiger. They did offer the girl to come and visit him at the zoo, but they lived way too far, and it was expensive. She wouldn't be able to do that regularly. The tiger had been sent to the zoo to be rehabilitated, heal up, and have a new life, but they had not managed to make a dent in his depression. That he was extremely sad, until he saw Mandy that day. It gave Sam hope that the animal could have a happy life. Koshi must have seen something in Mandy that reminded him of his friend on the compound. Despite being so much younger than that girl, she had the same kindness in her heart. Sam begged them to help the tiger. If they could come to visit often, they might be able to get Koshi back to a happy place. The zoo staff just wanted what was best for the tiger. They even gave the family a zoo pass. The family could even come in early before the zoo opened officially. Then, Koshi and Mandy could play all they wanted without bothering anyone else. They would, of course, keep the glass between them. Despite the girl on the compound playing with him directly, they didn't want to put Mandy at risk and ensured she stayed safe. They could hug each other through the glass. Andrea and Connor took Mandy to visit the zoo often, and she had a lot of amazing experiences. She became such a loved member of the zoo staff that they allowed her to do a lot more as she got older. They even allowed her to feed some of the baby animals in the zoo. But the most important part was that Koshi got better each day. He wasn't depressed anymore, and he even began interacting with other animals. It was a mission accomplished, but one that would change the trajectory of the child's life. Growing up, Mandy always loved animals, inspired by those many visits to the zoo and her experiences with Koshi and the zoo staff. She became a vet at the same zoo, ensuring she'd care for zoo animals for a long time. All thanks to one tiger who kept bowing before her. What an incredible story. What would you do if a tiger charged at you from behind a glass wall? Thanks for watching. Join us again for even more amazing stories.